Did you know there are literally tens of thousands of Minnesotans sitting on wait lists for housing assistance right now? Some of them have been waiting for years just to get some relief. Look, if you're tossing and turning at night, just totally stressing about skyrocketing rent, I want you to know you're absolutely not alone. Welcome to this comprehensive explainer. Today, we're going to walk step by step through navigating Minnesota's housing assistance programs. We're going to be focusing specifically on the federal Section 8 program and the state's Bring It Home initiative.
Okay, let's dive into this. Are you paying more than 30% of your income toward rent every single month? Seriously, take a quick second and think about your budget. If your answer is yes, you actually belong to a very specific group of people. And these housing programs, they were explicitly designed to help you out. You see, in the housing world, there's a term for this. It's called being cost burdened. Essentially, it means a household is paying more than 30% of their gross annual income just to keep a roof over their heads. And it's worth noting, Minnesota Housing also officially interprets this rule to include households currently experiencing homelessness. Understanding this term is so important because it's your foundational reality check. It's the absolute core eligibility criteria for accessing programs like Bring It Home.
So here's our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll start by understanding housing assistance programs. Then we'll look at meeting Minnesota eligibility requirements, the application process, waitlist and preference scoring, approval and finding housing, and finally, living with your voucher.
All right, let's jump straight into Section 1, Understanding Housing Assistance Programs. And this brilliantly illustrates the two main heroes of our explainer. We've got the long-standing federal Section 8 program and Minnesota's newer state-funded Bring It Home program. Now, they are a bit different. Section 8 is federal, right? It's funded by the Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD. It's open to all sorts of demographics, and a huge perk is that it's completely portable nationwide once you meet your initial residency terms. Bring It Home, on the other hand, is totally state-funded. That means it is strictly non-portable. You can't just transfer that assistance outside of the administrator's designated service area. Plus, it is strictly prioritized for Minnesota residents who have kids 18 or younger. Moving right along to Section 2, Meeting Minnesota Eligibility Requirements. So, before you even think about applying, you have to make sure you meet the strict financial caps set by the government. Specifically, we're talking about the Area Median Income, or AMI, limits established by HUD. Now, the absolute ceiling, the cutoff for eligibility, is the very low income bracket. That means you earn up to 50% of the area median income. Just to put that into perspective with a real-world example, in the Twin Cities metro area, 50% of the AMI for a family of 4 is $51,700. But here's the catch. Housing authorities are actually required to target a massive 75% of their newly issued Section 8 vouchers to the extremely low income bracket. That's folks earning at or below 30% of the AMI. But hey, calculating your income isn't always as simple as looking at your gross paycheck. If we point directly to this actual policy document from the St. Paul Public Housing Agency, you'll see your eligibility is based on your adjusted income. Basically, public housing authorities apply some specific deductions to your gross income. For example, they'll deduct $480 for each dependent, and there's a $400 allowance for elderly or disabled household members. Knowing about these deductions, it's an absolute game changer. It can literally make the difference in whether or not you qualify. Okay, Section 3, the application process. Now, knowing you qualify is one thing, but actually submitting the paperwork is a whole different ballgame. It's a really decentralized process across Minnesota, meaning it changes depending on the specific housing authority you're applying to, like how the Minneapolis Public Housing Authority requires an active email for their digital portal. But I need to stop here for a second and issue a very serious fraud warning. The cost to apply is $0.00, always. Under federal and state law, applying for housing assistance in Minnesota is entirely free. It is absolutely illegal for anyone to charge you a processing fee or try to sell you a Section 8 application. If a website or person asks you for money to apply, run the other way. It is a fraudulent scam, period. Let's move to and see how this builds a coherent journey, taking a cue from the Duluth Housing Authority. We can break this whole complex system down into 5 basic steps. 1, you apply. 2, you wait on the list. 3, you prove your final eligibility once your name actually gets called. 4, you search for an approved unit. And 5, you move in. Sounds super simple on paper, right? But as anyone who's been through it will tell you, step 2, the waiting, is where you're going to face the biggest challenge.
Which brings us to Section 4, waitlists and preference scoring.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the strategy behind those notoriously long waiting lists. Because demand is just way higher than supply, getting a spot is fiercely competitive. A lot of places use randomized lotteries or just a chronological first-come, first-served system. But you can actually take steps to improve your odds. Housing authorities don't just pull names out of a hat blindly. They use preference scoring to reflect their local community priorities. For instance, Metro HRA reserves a whopping 95% of its waitlist slots for local residents and gives a 10% preference to Native American applicants. Over at the St. Paul Public Housing Agency, they prioritize veterans and homeless individuals who are referred through coordinated entry. Understanding these local preferences and making sure you apply to multiple lists is an absolutely crucial strategy.
Next up, Section 5, Approval and Finding Housing. So, let's say you successfully navigate that waitlist. The light at the end of the tunnel is finally getting called in for your eligibility appointment to verify all your documents. Once you're approved, you get the actual voucher. But hold on, your job isn't quite done yet. You then have to go out and find a private market unit that a housing inspector agrees is decent, safe, and sanitary. Once you do find that perfect place, how much are you actually paying? Well, that's where the 30 to 40% rule kicks in. You're going to pay a portion of your income, usually somewhere between 30 and 40% toward your rent and utilities. The program then covers the rest, paying the landlord that difference directly. And honestly, this is the magic of the program. It makes budgeting for the essentials like groceries or life-saving medications finally manageable.
And our final section, Section 6, Living with Your Voucher.
Securing your housing is an absolutely life-changing event. For sure. But you do have ongoing responsibilities to make sure you keep this vital support. You have to maintain your eligibility through annual recertifications, and you've got to update the agency anytime your income changes. So, the crucial point to remember here is about your long-term geographic flexibility. It completely depends on which program is funding you. Remember, if you have a federal Section 8 voucher, it's fully portable nationwide after you meet those initial residency terms. You could literally pack up and take that voucher to another state. But if you're relying on Minnesota's Bring It Home program, your assistance is strictly non-portable. You cannot transfer it outside of your specific administrator's designated area.
Before we wrap up this explainer, I need to share a quick professional disclaimer. Housing processes can and do change. Always verify details with official public housing authorities or consult with local housing experts. The income limits, the waitlist rules, the digital platforms we talked about today, they are constantly evolving. It's totally your responsibility to verify these details directly with the official sources, okay? Navigating this housing assistance bureaucracy takes a ton of patience, absolute persistence, and some incredible organization. Honestly, preparation is your power, so I want to leave you with this thought. How will you organize your documents today to secure your spot for a stable tomorrow? Go ahead and start gathering your proof of income, your IDs, and your rental history right now. That way, when your opportunity finally knocks, you are absolutely ready to answer the door and claim it. Thank you so much for joining us on this explainer today.